Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTGCardsmith, and we're doing another custom Magic card review. We review cards, not real Magic cards, but cards that have been designed by amateurs. Um, yeah, so this is a continuation of a review of a set made by Arceus8523 called Amplalo, Realm of the Colossi. Uh, This is our next card that we're reviewing from that set. It's called Evergrowing Kraken. This is 2 and a blue for a Kraken creature. I like the art a lot. This is cool art. Um, Whenever another sea monster enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, they might both be right. Serpents and sharks are sea monsters. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Evergrowing Kraken's toughness is equal to 1 plus the number of tentacles you control. Okay. Um, okay, the idea for this card is cool. I really like the idea of a Kraken with all these tentacles kind of popping up out of the ocean and that's really cool. I really like the flavor of that. Um, this is an uncommon. So the first thing that jumps out to me as an issue with this card is this 1 plus the number of tentacles you control, right? The star plus 1. That's just I think you should really avoid that. When you're designing a card, you should really avoid that if you can. Like I know Tarmogoyf does this, right? But like Tarmogoyf is like not a real Magic card. I mean, it comes from what set is that? Future Sight, I believe. Um, where they or Planar Chaos or one of those where they were doing like all kinds of weird stuff. Maybe this shows up in a couple other cards, but this just kind of extra complexity I think is good to avoid, especially when you're dealing with an uncommon. Like complexity gets more appropriate as you go up in rarity. Um, and I just find this to be very awkward, and I think you could really clean this up. I think a really nice way to clean this card up is make this card a 2 star or a 1 star, and just make the Kraken come in with a tentacle already, right? So you would say something like, whenever Evergrowing Kraken or another sea monster enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token, and then its toughness is equal to the number of tentacles you control. Um, I I guess the downside there is if they kill the tentacle, then your Kraken dies. So I see why this is costed this way, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely tricky. It's definitely tricky. But I mean, is that even such a bad thing? I mean, I don't know. Because like, if you think about it this way, right? So let's say you play Evergrowing Kraken. It's a 2/1, right? You don't have any tentacles, and they kill it, right? You haven't gotten any value. You lost your 2/1 for 3, like whatever, right? I mean, it's kind of standard stuff. It's kind of the same situation if you play this guy and you get a free tentacle, right? I mean, they kill the tentacle and the Kraken dies. It's like the exact same situation. So, yeah, I don't really. I personally, if this were my card, that is how I would make this card work, just to avoid this sort of unnecessary complexity. And it might not seem like a big deal, but um, I think it really is, especially when you're like you want cards to be nice and simple and clean. Okay, but all right, so that's enough about that. I think that'll bring some of the points down for my grade. But that being said, I love the flavor of this card. I really like the idea of these tentacles coming out. I think maybe I've seen that on some other cards before. I'm not quite sure. I mean, but it's not like a super common thing. Um, yeah, I mean, this is very like Greek. This seems very Greek to me, which is cool. I mean, I love Greek mythology. I really like this art a lot, and it's cool that it seems like it's a payoff for if let's say you're drafting or you're building around this card. This is kind of an interesting payoff for sea monsters, as it were. Um, is that right? Sea monster? Yeah, sea monster. So let's so just as sort of a thought experiment here, let's say you play this guy on 3 and you have a 2/1, okay? You play on 4 you play another sea monster. This guy becomes a 2/2 and you get a tentacle. So now you have a 2/2 and a 1/1. And that's kind of like that kind of makes this card like reasonable, right? If you play this and you don't have any way to like grow it the next turn, it's a pretty bad card. It's a 2/1, right? 2/1 for 3. Um, the turn after, let's say you play another creature, and it's another sea monster. This thing becomes a 2/3, and then you end up with 2 tentacles. So, yeah, I mean, it's to be honest, this card to me seems almost a little underpowered for a payoff card. Like I actually think because the thing is like one tentacles are great and all, but I think a lot of the time you're going to be using them to help block things, right? You're going to either be chumping with them or you're going to be like pairing them up with other creatures to help block, and then your Kraken's going to shrink again, right? So it's like the Kraken itself never seems like it'll actually get big enough to really matter, and it's mostly just a way to make 1/1 tentacles, right? Let's say you compare this to a card like let's take a look at what is this? Murmuring Mystic. Murmuring, is that how you spell it? No, Murmuring. Okay, now Murmuring Mystic is 1 more mana. Okay, so we do have to keep that in mind. But this is a quite a similar card, right? This is like a payoff card. It makes tokens, right? This one creates 1/1 flyers, which is better than 1/1 tentacles. And this one's a 1/5, right? So it's like you play this, and it's a reasonable body on its own. Like it's nothing to write home about, but it's a reasonable body on its own. It can block well, and then it creates these birds, right? This guy is kind of a poor body, unless you're like really doing it right. Like I mean, if they never kill your Kraken, they never attack you. You never have to like block with your 1/1s. Then I mean, yeah, at some point you'll have like a I don't know like a 2/5. But even like a 2/5 is like not that exciting, you know. So like I almost wish like this line was just not there, and instead this was just like a 2/3, right? Like if this was just a 2/3 that made 1/1s when you played a sea monster, I think that would actually just be cleaner and a better card. Like a reason you would want to go into the sea monsters deck. Um, yeah. But again, I like the flavor of this card a lot. So okay, that's my analysis of this card. If I had to give this card a rating, it's got really good flavor, so it gets points for that. I think it's a little underpowered, and I think it's a little overcomplex for what it needs to be. Um, but it does have that sort of exciting Johnny feel, and I'm definitely a Johnny myself. Um, so yeah, I will give this card a 3 out of 5. I think it could use some improvements, but I like the idea of the card a lot. All right, that's my review of Overgrowing Kraken. Thank you for watching.